not raise income tax. We will not raise national insurance. We will not raise VAT. That is a manifesto.
Promised not to put up taxes.
Correct.
Took us for fools.
She will fool absolutely no one with a shameless attempt to lay the grounds for tax rises.
Are you ready to be taxed into poverty in a hellish version of Britain that the Labour government is creating? Keir Starmer just betrayed every working Brit with a tax hike that shatters his own promises. In a country already burdened by inflation, rising energy costs, and economic uncertainty, the last thing the British public needed was another financial blow. Yet, this is precisely what they received. Starmer has taken so many U-turns, you'd think he'd be more suited to be a driver than a leader. As approval ratings plunge and public outcry grows louder, one must ask, the economy is teetering on the edge. What does this mean for the future of Britain under Starmer's leadership? The truth is, it was all there before our eyes, painfully obvious. Here are Starmer's own words exposing him for his betrayal.
We want to fight an election on the economy. We want to fight the election on the economy. We've got to grow our economy because that's the only way that we can actually make the progress that we need to make. On taxes, I mean, firstly, the highest tax since the Second World War. I mean, this really is anti-conservative stuff. I want taxes to come down for working people. They've been really clobbered time and time again, whether that's on income tax, whether it's national insurance or council tax, which of course, or the stealth tax of thresholds. Everywhere you look, obviously there's, we've got to reduce our debt, I accept that. We've got to grow our economy, I accept that. But you then got to decide, well, where is the burden going to lie? And this government keeps clobbering work.
Highest taxes since the World War, and what is Starmer's brilliant idea in the bizarro world? Raise the taxes further. Sure, the Conservatives weren't without fault, and you could argue that they clobbered working class people. But what has the Labour Party done about it? If anything, they're clobbering us harder. Imagine Robin Hood, but instead of giving to the poor, he robs them dry while promising growth. That's Starmer's government for you. Starmer makes big promises before eventually betraying them. Here's what he had to say about impossible promises. Too many politicians make promises they can't keep.
We are going to inherit a really damaged economy, and we will be the party of sound money, and we will set out exactly what we'll do going into that election. And I want to see lower taxes for working people, but it's very important, and there's a big political lesson in this, that we don't make promises.
Well said, Sir Keir. I wonder if he'd be willing to include himself in that category as well, since he clearly belongs there. He promised to not raise taxes. In fact, he just mentioned that he wants to keep the taxes low. Or maybe the Labour Party's goal was to break our backs with ludicrous taxes all along. If this wasn't enough already, here's Starmer vowing at a public stage.
So let me spell it out. We will not raise income tax. We will not raise national insurance. We will not raise VAT. That is a manifesto commitment.
In his own words, Labour's manifesto commitment will not raise taxes. It seems that the Labour Party, especially Starmer, has some serious commitment issues. Or perhaps they confused their manifesto with the communist one. Either way, his words are clear. He made those promises, and now he's breaking them. One U-turn after another, and dozens of broken promises. This is the legacy Starmer is creating. Starmer didn't deny any of that, not even for a single moment. He knew his hideous plans were being exposed and just stood there, speechless. The exact number may not be accurate, at least not yet. However, this new government has only been in power for a few months, and they're already on the path to destruction. So it's pretty fair and concerning to say that Rishi Sunak's words are likely to end up being true. Starmer's whole charade about the British people being burdened and struggling to make ends meet is followed by policies that make the situation even worse. They claim that they suddenly found a 22 billion quid black hole in the economy, which is why they must raise taxes. However, this is utter nonsense, as the former Chancellor Jeremy Hunt puts an end to this false narrative.
That's why today's exercise is not economic, it's political. She wants to blame the last Conservative government for tax rises and project cancellations she's been planning all along.
It's nothing but a political blame game. She knows that the Conservative government had issues and is using them as a scapegoat for Labour's mismanagement and ridiculous policies. Increased taxes were always their plan. The current economy just gave them a convenient excuse. That is what happens when a leftist political party rises to power. They try to shoehorn their ideology. You might be wondering, surely that can't be true. But it is, and there's evidence to support that claim. Amid the financial crisis we face, Starmer approved paying unions to drastically increase the salaries of already well-off doctors and train drivers.
View the books. I mean, the books were actually publicly available, and it turns out, shock horror, they're going to say, well, this is worse than we thought it was, and we're going to have to renege on some of those promises. Oh, and this pay review body says that 5.5% for all public sector workers. Well, we've got to give them that. Not because we're in the pockets of the unions or anything. We're just going to do it, and we're all going to...
Well, isn't that convenient? They can't afford to pay pensioners their winter fuel payments, but bending to the demands of unions without any productivity benefits is completely acceptable. You and I will suffer the consequences of this, simply because we don't have a union to back us up. Now, normally people getting pay raises, especially doctors, is an excellent thing and we'd all support that. But this is insidious. These unions are essentially bullying the government with insane demands and, more importantly, demanding more raises in an already inflated economy. Here's how this ill-informed decision by Starmer is going to affect you.
Growth is your main aim as a Labour government, and tax people. And then the final question I ask, which I think is really important, if public sector wages go up almost 3 times faster than inflation, how fast should private sector wages go up? Because you don't get your gold-plated pension. This will lead to out-of-control inflation, which is the real tax that will hit everyone with a mortgage.
Ain't that a kick in the head? Not only do you have to pay more taxes, but you'll also have to deal with more inflation. Simply lovely. More importantly, these pay raises are funded by your tax money. Have fun paying for the increasingly unreasonable demands of these union workers while getting destroyed by increased inflation. Talk about a double whammy by Sir Keir. Naturally, people don't appreciate this, and the consequences are obvious. People will take to the streets in protest, and knowing Keir's two-tier policing, it'll devolve into riots.
They won't take responsibility for their own actions. And you knew the moment they were going to get in, they were going to raise taxes. I think they're going to do a lot more than raise taxes. I mean, this riots that are going on, do you know what? He thinks he's coming down, cracking down hard on them, and it's going to stop. I tell you what, if he goes on pushing the people at the bottom of the pile like he's doing, there's going to be more trouble in his streets, because you can push people so far and they've had it.
Really, the lack of responsibility from this government is baffling. People are losing trust in a government that won't own up to their actions and continuously blaming the previous governments for absolutely everything. Riots already plague Britain, and the way things are going, the situation will only get worse. Yes, this may seem pessimistic, but the working class is being crushed from all sides. Whether it's the destructive illegal immigration or pensioners being targeted, at some point they will snap, and let's hope things don't get to that stage.
What do they mean by working people? All of us are working people, and certainly most drivers are working people. They promised not to put up taxes. Look, us for fools, Ian, and I'm afraid too many people were taken in by those promises, and the scales are now beginning to fall from people's eyes.
Despite the high hopes we had for this new government, we really might end up being the fools. Fuel duties are being increased now. One after another, Starmer's government is increasing every tax known to mankind. Right now, it's fuel duty, and the motorists are not happy about it. The glitter is fading, and people are beginning to see how incompetent and hypocritical the Labour Party is.
Well, their game is to reward people for striking in the public sector, and my goodness, they've done that. What's the figure? Something like half that black hole, that black hole there is actually to fund pay increases for public sector people who have been on strike. It's to give in. It's to reward them for striking. That's why motorists are going to pay more. That's why pensioners are losing their winter fuel allowance, and that's why inheritance tax and capital gains tax look like going.
Remember the magical 22 billion quid black hole? Turns out the Labour Party approved almost half of it to pay the unions for the public sector workers on strike. This might seem like a good thing, but you have to realize that what these strikers are demanding is ludicrous. The government is accommodating all of these demands from our pockets. Of course, when you increase taxes and pander to unions, there are some serious consequences. Other than the obvious inflation, many people are leaving the UK. They're immigrating elsewhere to escape these nonsensical taxes.
I think that the trouble here is you can only milk people so far, and before they just decide, actually, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to take my skills, my labour elsewhere. And we're literally seeing this in a brain drain to other parts of the world from the UK of our talent. And we're not just talking multimillionaires here. We're talking professionals, we're talking accountants, we're talking teachers, we're talking healthcare workers who are actually leaving the UK because it does not stand.
Talented people. Businessmen and entrepreneurs are leaving the country, and no wonder. Who wouldn't prefer a country like Dubai, where there's no income tax, over the current state of Britain? Naturally, this means our economy will take a huge hit, With not enough business around, we won't have access to jobs. The job market will face a shortage and, at the same time, there will be a shortage of highly skilled workers. Nobody here wins, all thanks to the Labour government. Here's the hard facts on this.
Essentially, entrepreneurs, businessmen and businesswomen and the top earners are already leaving this country in their droves. We heard last week that within like a month, 9,000 millionaires, multi-millionaires have left the country.
That's 9,000 of Britain's sharpest minds, pushed away by Starmer's government. If he really wanted economic growth and prosperity, he'd support these people, help them create more jobs, and give benefits and incentives to help bloom the economy. But it's clear that it was never the goal. Of course, this socialist mindset only applies to a select few. Two-tier Keir strikes again, as he provides special benefits to wealthy people who support him. That's right, the supposed champion of the British people has his favourites. Lord Wahid Ali, a guy who funded the Labour's campaigns and Starmer's wardrobe, gets preferential treatment. Don't believe me? Watch this clip.
This guy has given huge sums of money from the point of view of ordinary people. £500,000 pounds is an awful lot of money. And now, in return for that, has access all areas to 10 Downing Street, I think is truly astonishing. I imagine if that had happened under the Tory party, the all hell that would have broken loose, the cries of corruption and cronyism that would have come from Angela Rayner and Keir.
This is borderline corruption and hypocrisy of the highest order. This guy, who bashed the Conservatives relentlessly for preferential treatment, gave special access to Wahid Ali. You and I, US normal civilians, can't go to Downing Street without authorization. But the guy who gave £500,000 to the Labour Party gets special access. Moreover, he provided 16,000 quid worth of suits for Sir Keir. Morality be damned as long as you look dashing. Right, Sir Keir?
Some of the analysis this morning in the papers, they're going to have a shake-up of council tax bans which will target wealthy people's homes. Now again, you know, define wealthy people. A lot of people have got a house that's worth an awful lot of money, but they're not wealthy necessarily. Fuel duty is probably going to go up. It might be as much as 10p a litre. Pension relief, tax relief on pension contributions could be slashed. You know, that's one of the places where people, particularly small business people, are able to actually, you know, reduce their tax limitation.
So it's not just the wealthy businessmen who are getting screwed here. In fact, it's basically anyone who doesn't support Starmer and sends him personal gifts. The government should support small businesses, but nope. In Starmer's Britain, you get taxed into oblivion. Doesn't matter if you're not doing well in the current economy, as long as you have assets, better pay up. There's inheritance tax, wealth tax, and fuel tax coming up. And that's just the start. After that, Starmer has set his sights on the pensioners. Robbing them off their winter fuel payments wasn't enough. It's time to tax their pensions now.
Now, about 140,000 pensioners are going to be hit, apparently, with a tax bill over the next 6 weeks as HMRC, Gold Loveham, commences a raid on retirement incomes.
Yes, it will actually be the first time many of these pensioners have received a tax demand since they gave...
Not even the pensioners are safe from this madness. Starmer's assault on pensioners doesn't end with slashing winter fuel payments. It's just the opening act of his economic horror show. It's not enough that they freeze in the winter, they have to starve too, apparently. Everyone will suffer the consequences of believing in Starmer and his party, even your grandma, whether it's the threats of wealth taxes or so-called pension reforms. Starmer appears dead set on wringing out every last drop of financial security from those who've spent their lives playing by the rules. Some people have the audacity to defend this by saying it's only a small amount of tax. Here's why that's an utterly deranged thing to say.
They're being taxed on their income, which includes the state pension and also money that they get through doing part-time jobs, whatever it may be, and also their own private pensions. So what the point is that tax band, because of the gradual rise in income, including the state pension, is catching 140,000 more people, and they will for the first time get this.
They've worked hard their entire life, paid their dues in taxes, and saved up a modest pension to enjoy their golden years. Then, out of nowhere, the government swoops in to snatch a piece of what little you have left. That's right, they're taxing pensions now. Sure, they'll tell you it's just a small amount, But it's a slippery slope, my friend. What starts as a trickle soon becomes a flood. The point here is that Starmer is clearly biased towards unions due to his leftist agenda. Why is it that they can afford to pay billions to unions but can't support pensioners?
It's only going to be a small amount of that money which is taxable, isn't it? So, I mean, it's going to be a modest demand, if nothing else.
It's still a demand, though, isn't it? And a lot of people will be panicking, and a lot of people will be saying, look, we're hard up enough as it is, and to have this taxation based on what is still a I mean, what is the state pension? It depends how old you are, but it's between about 11,000 and 13,000 a year. It's not a huge amount.
This isn't just about a few extra pennies out of your pocket. It's about a government that seems intent on squeezing every last drop from the people who can least afford it. Starmer's economic plan appears to be this: make sure people not only miss out on the benefits they deserve, but also pay for the privilege. It's the kind of policy that makes you wonder if they're running a government or a comedy sketch, though I doubt many are laughing.
Left-wing approach to this rather than one of practicality and pragmatism. Increase the rate of income tax for high earners, increase the rate of corporation tax, increase the rate of capital gains tax, because it looks good from an ideological point of view. But it's a dumb, stupid thing to do, because all that happens is people work less hard, they abandon the country and go elsewhere, or worse, they simply find ways to avoid paying, evade the tax. What Rachel Reeves is about to do in the budget on October the 30th is not only stupid, but it will have a devastating effect on this country's economy.
In the end, Keir Starmer's tax policies are less about responsible governance and more about indulging in a fantasy of wealth redistribution. He's taken a page from the Socialism Handbook, dusted it off, and thought, hey, this could work in 2024, but instead of hitting the wealthy fat cats he claims to target, it's the everyday Brit who's feeling the pinch. The irony here is that while Starmer's taxing everything that moves, the economy isn't moving forward. It's like he's taxing us into prosperity, except that's not how prosperity works. The public is right to be furious because, at this rate, the only thing growing in the UK under Starmer's leadership is our tax bills. If you're as fed up with this nonsense as we are, make sure to like and subscribe for more no-nonsense takes on the state of our nation. Let's keep the conversation going and hold our leaders accountable, because the only thing worse than being taxed to the bone is being silent about it.